Hey there, Creepypasta fans, welcome back to my channel. Today, I have a spine-chilling story to share with you all. Imagine this: a young girl wandering alone in the dark, ominous woods, with no one around to hear her cries for help. What horrors await her in the depths of the forest? The woods were a labyrinth of shadows, their gnarled fingers reaching out to claim her. Sarah was alone, a solitary speck against the encroaching darkness. The sun, once a warm embrace, had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind an eerie twilight that seemed to seep into her bones. Her heart pounded like a frantic drumbeat, a rhythm echoing the panic thoughts racing through her mind. How did she get so lost? One moment she was chasing a butterfly, its vibrant wings a splash of color against the verdant canvas. The next, the familiar trails had vanished, replaced by a tangled web of undergrowth. Fear, a cold, insidious thing, was beginning to consume her. The woods, once a place of wonder, now felt like a malevolent entity, watching her with hungry eyes. With each crunch of leaves beneath her feet, she expected to hear something: a snap, a rustle, a growl, anything to break the suffocating silence. A twig snapped behind her, her breath hitched. She spun around, her eyes straining to pierce the gloom. Nothing, just the relentless whisper of the wind through the trees. Or was it something else? A shiver ran down her spine. It wasn't the cold, it was something deeper, a primal fear that had awakened within her. She remembered the nightmares, the ones where she was chased by an unseen terror, its shape shifting and growing with each desperate step. And then it came to her, a realization so chilling it nearly froze her blood. This wasn't a random encounter with nature's indifference. This was a trap. A twisted, malicious game designed to bring her face to face with her deepest, darkest fear. As the night deepened, the woods transformed into a sinister playground. Shadows danced and writhed, taking on grotesque shapes. The wind seemed to carry whispers not of comfort but of promises of horrors yet unseen. Sarah stumbled on, her legs heavy with exhaustion and dread. The trees closed in around her, forming a claustrophobic tunnel, and then through the veil of darkness she saw it, a pair of glowing eyes, fixed on her with a predatory intensity. Her heart stopped. This was it, the creature from her nightmares, materialized in the heart of the woods. It moved towards her, slowly, deliberately, its form indistinct in the gloom. As it drew closer, Sarah felt a strange calm wash over her. Fear, the relentless tyrant, had been replaced by a cold, determined resolve. She would not be a victim. She would face her fear. And she would conquer it, or she would die trying. The creature was closer now, its form beginning to take shape in the dim moonlight. It was tall, impossibly tall, with elongated limbs that seemed to stretch and retract like shadows. Its face was a mask of darkness, devoid of features, save for two burning red eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. A scream built in Sarah's throat, but it was frozen, trapped by terror. She stumbled backward, her feet finding no purchase on the treacherous ground. The creature took a step forward, and the world seemed to tilt. Then something snapped. A twig, perhaps, or maybe something more sinister. A figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette against the moonlit sky. It was a man, or at least it appeared human. He was tall and lean, with a wildness about him that hinted at a life lived beyond the edges of civilization. His eyes met Sarah's, and a flicker of recognition passed between them. Then, without a word, he stepped in front of her, his body blocking the monstrous figure. A battle ensued, a silent clash of shadows against the night. The man fought with a feral intensity, his movements fluid and deadly, The creature responded with brute force, its attacks like the flailing of a wounded beast. Sarah watched, paralyzed by fear and awe. The man was a warrior, a protector against the darkness. But even as she found a flicker of hope, a cold dread crept into her heart. She knew this was not a battle to be won. The creature, with a final desperate lunge, overpowered the man. Darkness consumed them both. Sarah was left alone. The only living thing in a world turned to shadow, then silence. A heavy, oppressive silence, and then a whisper, carried on the wind. "Run, child," it said. Sarah turned, her heart pounding in her ears. There was nothing behind her, just the endless expanse of the woods. Yet the voice was clear, insistent, without hesitation. She ran until her legs burned, until her lungs ached. She ran until the first light of dawn touched the horizon, painting the sky with hues of pink and gold, and then she stopped. The woods were still, the shadows retreated, and the world seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. She was safe, or so she thought, but the fear that had gripped her that night would never truly leave. The woods, she knew, were not simply a place, they were a portal, a gateway to something dark and ancient, and she had glimpsed the other side. Sarah stumbled out of the woods, her body aching, her mind a whirlwind of terror and disbelief. The morning sun was a harsh contrast to the horrors of the night, revealing a world untouched by the darkness she had escaped. But the woods were no longer just trees and undergrowth, they were a scar on her psyche. A constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of human perception. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of the creature, its cold, predatory gaze, haunted her dreams. She tried to find solace in the company of others, but the familiar faces seemed distant. There lives a mundane contrast to the terrifying reality she had experienced. Isolation crept in, a silent companion that fed on her fear. The woods, once a place of childhood wonder, became a forbidden zone, a place of shadows and whispers, yet a strange pull drew her back. A morbid curiosity that clashed with the terror that gripped her heart. One moonless night, driven by a compulsion she couldn't explain, Sarah found herself at the edge of the woods. The darkness was a familiar blanket, comforting in its familiarity. With a trembling hand, she stepped into the undergrowth, her senses on high alert. The woods were different now, quieter, more oppressive. A sense of dread washed over her, stronger than ever before. She pressed on, deeper into the heart of darkness, her footsteps echoing in the silence. And then she saw it, a faint glow emanating from the depths of the woods. Curiosity mixed with a heady dose of fear propelled her forward. The glow intensified, revealing a hidden clearing, a circular space encircled by ancient gnarled trees. At the center of the clearing stood a monolith, a towering stone structure covered in strange, otherworldly symbols. A cold wind swept through the clearing, carrying with it a low guttural humming. As Sarah approached the monolith, the symbols seemed to shift and change, forming a haunting tapestry of images. She saw glimpses of a world beyond human comprehension, of cosmic horrors and ancient evils, and then she saw herself, trapped within one of the symbols, a tiny figure struggling against an unseen force. Terror consumed her. She turned to flee, but the monolith seemed to draw her in, its power irresistible. As she reached out to touch the cold, smooth surface, the world around her dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes, and then, darkness. Sarah woke with a jolt, her heart pounding in her chest. The world around her was distorted. Alien colors seemed to bleed into one another, and shadows danced in grotesque patterns. She was no longer in the woods, but in a place that defied description. A cold metallic taste filled her mouth as she struggled to sit up. Her body ached, and a dull throbbing pain pulsed behind her eyes. As her vision cleared, she found herself in a sterile white room, the kind often seen in medical dramas. There were no windows, no doors, just endless white walls. A sense of panic washed over her. Where was she? What had happened to her? She tried to call out, but her voice was a hoarse whisper. A cold dread settled in her bones as she realized she was completely alone. Then she heard it, a faint humming, growing louder with each passing second. It was the same humming she had heard in the woods at the monolith. Fear, cold and absolute, gripped her heart. The humming grew into a deafening roar, and the walls of the room began to vibrate. A crack appeared in the ceiling, widening rapidly until it transformed into a gaping hole. A beam of blinding light poured through the opening. Casting grotesque shadows on the walls, a figure emerged from the light, a towering shadowy form that seemed to fill the room. It was the creature from her nightmares, larger and more terrifying than ever before, its eyes twin beacons of malevolent intelligence. Locked onto Sarah, she screamed, a sound that echoed through the empty room. The creature advanced, its movements slow and deliberate. Sarah backed away, her heart pounding like a trapped bird. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The creature was upon her. This tale of fear and survival will send shivers down your spine and make you question what lurks in the darkness beyond our understanding. Stay tuned for more chilling, creepy tales. Remember, if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales. And as always, stay safe out there, my fellow creepypasta enthusiasts. Until next time, stay spooky.